Andy Jones with FATCA, Andy Jones.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, most welcome guests. Well, good evening. The purpose of this speech is to elucidate a piece of American legislation known as FATCA. And the aim of it's a kind of Noddy's guide, a kind of simplified way of explaining what FATCA is, what it does, why it needs to exist. So for this speech, I'm going to need several volunteers from the audience. And when I say volunteers, what I really mean is, Nadine, would you come and join me? Sit in the chair. Right, now we're going to create a very, very simplified economy. And this economy is going to have one taxpayer in it. And Nadine is the one taxpayer. And Nadeem, I'll give you a pen because you're going to be needing that shortly. Now, could I ask Mo, please, would you join me up on stage? Here. Yes. And could you be the banker, please, in our economy? So you're the banker and you're going to start with $1,000. Okay, so there's $1,000 and you're the starting position, you're the banker. And could I also please, Jess, would you join us, and would you please be and could you be the tax authorities, please? Okay, now let's start with a very, very simple situation. Nadeem has an account at the bank. The account has earned $1,000 in interest, and everybody the first time through is going to be completely honest. So I'm going to give Nadeem his American tax return. The American tax return is called a 1040, and in the real world they look much more complicated than this, but this is the one we're going to be using. Okay? So, would you have your 1040? And now, would the banker please pay $1,000 to the customer? Okay. Now, Nadeem, you've received a $1,000. Actually, use that one. You've received $1,000. So, could you write $1,000 on your tax return? And return the tax return to the tax authorities. Okay, hold that way so the cameras can see it. Now, the rate of tax in our example is going to be 20%, so would you also give $200 to the taxman? Okay, so at this point, everybody is happy. You've paid what you owe. You've got your income less the 20% tax. And you have received a return of that tax, which was nice and honest and contained the real figures, and you've received 20% of what Nadeem got. Okay, let's go back to the starting position and try some less honest players. So if the money can go back to Mo, so we'll start again with a new tax return. Okay, now this time, well, if you would once again pay $1,000 to Nadeem, who's the taxpayer. So Nadeem has received £1,000 worth of interest. Now Nadeem, this time, what I want you to do is to pretend that you've only received £100. So here's your tax return. Fill in your tax return with £100. And pass that on to the tax authority. Okay, now you need to pay your tax, and it's at 20%. So, have you got $20 on you?
Second.
Okay, apparently you have. Hooray! Well done. Is everybody happy with this situation? The banker, I don't think, has a problem. The banker's paid what is owed. Nadine doesn't have a problem, I don't think. I'd say you're up on the deal, aren't you? But the tax authorities at this point are, you're down, aren't you? One of the issues you've got, though, presumably, is that you don't know why you're down. That is, you know that there are dishonest taxpayers out there, and in our very simplified economy that has only one taxpayer, you could probably take a fair guess at who it is. But in all circumstances, you wouldn't be able to. So, this time, let's start again, but introduce a few other rules. So, let's start a more bureaucratic system. Let's give the £1,000 back to our banker. Now, the tax authorities are going to issue a taxpayer number called a TIN, Taxpayer Identification Number, to the taxpayer. So if you could lend just the pen for a moment. And because there's only one taxpayer in our system, I call him number 1. So just give him 1 and put that in the box and issue that to Nadine. Okay? And he'll need the pen next, I think. Now, Nadine is then under an obligation to inform his bank what his taxpayer number is. And that's done on a form called a W9. So, Nadine, if you could put your taxpayer number, which is 1, remember, on that form, and you can then deliver that form to your bankers. Okay? The bankers now know not only that they are paying $1,000 to Nadine, but also that Nadine is taxpayer number 1. Now, the next thing that the bank is required to do is when it pays interest, it has to fill in a form called a 1099 int and to send that to the tax authorities. So, there's your form, and if you can have the pen from Nadine, okay. And I'd like you to fill in the TIN 1 and the income of $1,000. Okay, and now what you do is you deliver the $1,000 to Nadine and the 1099 int form to Jess. Okay, now what happens is that Nadine has to fill in his form. And unlike the previous 1040, which only had the one box on it, he's now got a 1040 with 2 boxes on it, one for his taxpayer identification number and one for the amount of income he's received. So Nadine, if you now want to fill that in, someone will have the pen to use. Okay, now at this point, number 1 is your number, obviously. Now at this point, you're not going to get away, are you, with putting $100 in the income box, because someone already knows how much they're expecting from you. So the only course of action that you've got open to you now is to be honest and to pay the $1,000, so put the $1,000 in the box, and return that to the tax authorities together with your £200 payment. Do you see? Round of applause for doing that. What has happened is we've got an arrangement where money is flowing this way around the circle, but information is flowing this way around the circle, so that the tax authorities never find themselves out of pocket. However, this is where FATCA comes in. Mo, thank you very much for your involvement. Would you like to go and sit down? Can I please have another volunteer? By a volunteer, I mean Robert. Robert to me is a foreign banker FATCA. So instead of standing here with the rest of the team, like Robert, you can stand way over there. Now, if you've got the $1,000, as you can see, you can pay that to Nadeem, but because you are nothing to do with the country where these people make the laws and can be forced to make you fill in all those forms that I was just shuffling around with, there is no way that we can know that either you or Nadeem aren't being dishonest with the tax authorities. Do you see the logic that while everybody's in the same country and is forced to play by the same rules, the system I've just described works perfectly well and the information flows around the circle? In this current situation, you have no influence over how he behaves, and therefore, not having the knowledge of what he's paid to him, we don't know if what he tells you is true or not. And that's where FATCA comes in. So, huge round of applause to So, this is where FATCA comes in. Now, the basic principle of FATCA is really very straightforward. It is that the Americans will make a deal with every other country in the world, and you may say that sounds like a chore, but they really have done it with most of them, and the UK has been signed up to this for quite some time, to the effect that every financial institution, practically every interest payer, even if they're not really financial institutions as we understand it, like banks and insurance companies and so on, but much more minor things like trusts, stuff like that, anybody who's paying interest to everyone else has to be signed up and get their own, it's called a GIN, it's like a TIN, but it actually stands for Global Intermediary Identification Number. And all those people must start telling the US tax authorities about any money they've paid to the taxpayer if the taxpayer is American. So, I could obviously go on at some length about this. I deal with this on a day-to-day basis, and I deal with the actual practicalities of how it works. And on a technical level, FATCA is very complicated. But I hope you'll agree that in principle, what it's trying to achieve is not too difficult to understand.